building here in the queue, your hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyJosh, questions and comments here. This is, again, interactive journalism. This is how we carry the reporting on this story forward, is to tell you what is actually factual, what is not factual, what we do know, what we don't know. So you can use hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyJosh, and we'll feature your questions and your comments coming up here. We also have your video questions coming in. If you use the hashtag, we can feature your comment on screen. If you don't want your name and your profile picture and your question to be right here in the center of our coverage, just don't use the hashtag, and we'll let your comment continue scrolling up on our screen without plucking out of the YouTube Live or Facebook Live comment section. The latest for you right now is on WFLA.com. That's where we have the latest. And Josh, that includes that we've been informed that Brian Laundrie's parents are here in Florida, of course, and they are grieving privately with their daughter, Cassie. Cassie Laundrie's name, of course, has been mentioned so many times, really first and foremost because she was confirmed to be at the Fort DeSoto campground, that camping trip that Brian Laundrie and the family took September 6th, September 7th, about 6 days after his return from the road trip with Gabby Petito. Fort DeSoto, of course, being southern Pinellas County, really the gateway, entryway, the waterway that goes into Tampa Bay. I mean, that general area. And then, of course, Cassie coming out of her home and confronting demonstrators that were outside of her home, and then the two appearances as well on Good Morning America. So Cassie has been, we have heard from Cassie way more than we have heard from any other member of the Laundrie family.
Yeah. And so, I talked with the attorney today, and he just gave that update, grieving privately in Florida with the daughter, I believe with her husband as well. So they, at an undisclosed place. I mean, a lot of people are still outside of their residence in Northport wondering where they've been for the past 24 hours. So, it just sounds to me that they got together and, they just lost their brother and their son. So they're going to go off and get away from the press and get away from the protesters and
I don't
ultimately
blame them.
go and discuss what happened and
grieve
together as a family, as far as I understand it from the attorney, Stephen Bertolino. So that's the latest from the home front down in Northport.
I have a question coming in for you, Josh, and we talked about it before the stream began, and it comes in from Tony Lee, and hold on, there's some new changes to Facebook. Stop me if you've ever heard that before. New changes to Facebook.
Yeah, the Facebook papers are out, so that's the big news today for Facebook. So,
waiting for this comment here to hopefully appear on our screen, and so trying to animate this comment in from Facebook.
Chat.
Try one more time. It comes from Tony. If I can't animate it, then I will just read it. And okay, there it is. It's
so
just
this is
populating.
live.
So Tony
and
hashtag HeyJB.
What about going over the autopsy, see how it's
in the
inconclusive?
Park? And you have some information, Josh, about that. You were posting about that on Twitter.
Yes, so let's talk about that. And I don't want to get everybody excited because, look, this isn't connected to the case as far as we know at all. But this is interesting for especially our part of the world. We have a lot of beautiful areas to fish. We have beautiful islands down here in Florida. It's a great place to live. So early on in this, investigation with the Laundrie, with Brian Laundrie specifically, we talked about Fort DeSoto. So that kind of put that on the map because the family did go there to camp, and they did go there to hang out before Brian disappeared ultimately into the reserve. So during that camping trip, it was a 1 to 2 day event, and the whole family was there essentially, and puts that location on the map. Now, when this weekend, I see this tweet from a local newspaper here talking about how a fisherman found a gun that was weighted down near Fort DeSoto off the shore. So, I mean, obviously, immediately that pricks your ears because you're like, wait, what? A gun? And so I posted that on my Twitter handle at WFLAJosh if you want to read the article. But immediately, obviously, I knew people were going to try to make a connection there. And, that obviously I know that's going to happen because a lot of my content on Twitter was about Brian Laundrie. What's interesting about this is the fisherman said when the deputy came by, he had overheard him say this is a first for him. So he had never had that happen from a law enforcement side to just reel in a gun. This fisherman reeled in a gun. Now it was, as far as we understand, it was weighted down, it had twine around it, looked like an older handgun, and it was covered in a Publix plastic bag. So a couple things here. Obviously, somebody didn't want this gun to be found. So that's exciting for everybody because if that's the case, this gun could be tied to a crime, and now it's in the hands of law enforcement with Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
It could also be the missing gun from the Laundrie's house.
Because now they can take that gun, they can run prints, they can do ballistics, they can do whatever they need to do to see if this is related to any crimes, maybe unsolved crimes in the area. Now, I know people want to make the connection because of Fort DeSoto and the fact that the family was out there. Did Brian have a gun? Did he throw it into the water? Did he try to get rid of it? There's been a lot of talk about a gun in Brian's case. We don't have firm details on if there was a gun. Did he have one? That's always been speculation that's been flying around, like a lot of stuff in this case. So to see all of a sudden a gun at Fort DeSoto, people are going to get excited. One person even said maybe he shot himself and they got rid of the gun at Fort DeSoto. That's going to be difficult if you're dead. So you just got to be careful about how you explain what could have happened here, because that's far out there. But interesting enough, there's no connection as far as we know to this case. So don't get too excited. It's just, I think it could be involved in a crime. And so I'm glad the sheriff's office has it now and they can run the proper tests. And we will follow up with that case to see, hey, was that gun used in a crime? And if so, hopefully learn what crime that was.
I'm working on fixing our comment system. You can see there is Tony's comment. Tony, thanks a lot for your comment. #AJB, #Josh against our, sometimes just some real troubleshooting on the fly. Facebook did make some big changes for how we produce live streams. And so bringing in those comments and questions from Facebook, just kind of trying to do some real-time troubleshooting here. Let's get to the first video question. And let me make sure that I have the first video question incorrectly. Again, these video questions came into the WFLA JB Facebook page. And again, why we do this? Why do we answer questions here on stream? We answer them because there's just so much misinformation out there on social media. And so if you use #AJB, use #Josh, we can bring in your questions and comments and tell you what is actually true as far as the Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie story. So we'll continue to feature some of the questions and comments that we have in here. And again, if you'd like to have your video question here, part of our interactive live stream coverage, you can use #AJ, or excuse me, send it to the WFLA JB Facebook page. So we'll put away the comment here from Tony. And this first question on video comes in from Jessica. And let's bring in Jessica here on WFLA.
Hey JB, I was just wondering, where do you think this case will go from here? Do you think that it will be case closed, or can there still be charges put forward if it is proven that he did do this to Gabby?
Jessica, thanks a lot. Love the dog there, Josh. Cute dog part of the video question there from Jessica. But the case going forward, and this is the question now, is that now that we have it confirmed, of course, that Brian Laundrie is deceased. Gabby Petito, of course, we have known is deceased. Gabby Petito, of course, being murdered, and we don't know who the murderer is. We don't know the cause of death for Brian Laundrie. If it's suicide, it's suicide. If it's something else, then what is it other than suicide? So the question from Jessica is, where does this go now going forward? And I think that the big things now are, determining, hearing from the anthropologist on what the cause of death is, and hopefully being able to determine the cause of death from the skeletal remains, the skull and the other bones that were found at the Carlton Reserve. But then going back to Teton County, Wyoming, and hopefully we're able to find out more details on throughout this process. Hopefully we're able to find out more details on whether or not there was any evidence near or on the body of Gabby Petito that points to who the murderer is. Again, murder via manual strangulation.
I agree. I think it's forensics now. I think they look at DNA. DNA is going to be hyper focused upon it at this point. Any kind of DNA under the fingernails, any kind of DNA on her body, they're going to get as much as they can, and they probably, actually they already have it, but it's a matter now of trying to do the comparisons. Now, I don't know how long that process takes, but now it's going to be a very sensitive investigation in terms of lab work. They're going to have to, the anthropologist in the lab with the remains of Brian, the FBI in the lab with with Gabby Petito's DNA and DNA that could be a part of her remains. And now it's really fine details of trying to piece together what it's going to be. So I think it's going to be a long wait. Unless something breaks this case, unless they have a big breakthrough. There was mention of a possible phone, Gabby's phone. Do we know where that is? That could be electronic forensics. That could be something, if it's ever discovered or if it's found and we don't know about that would be highly scrutinized and looked into. So it's every piece of evidence they have along the way or trying to find, they will continue to bring that under a microscope, literally, to figure out, how they can make any comparisons here. Because, why did Brian Laundrie die? Did he kill himself? Why did he kill himself? What was his mindset? What had happened? Did he have anything to do with Gabby's death? Was that the reason why he killed himself if he did? Those are all questions now they start to try to piece together. So this case is far from over. I think it's just beginning, actually. But again, we're not going to hear about many developments until there's a breakthrough in the lab, whether it's DNA or any other type of forensics.
To Jessica's question, will charges be filed? If it's determined, if forensics come back, let's say, on Gabby's remains that were found in Teton County, in Wyoming, and it's determined that they have ample evidence to say that it was Brian Laundrie. We're going down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah.
Going down the rabbit hole and saying that there was evidence there on the body or near the body that points to with certainty that it was Brian Laundrie who manually strangled Gabby Petito to death. Charges don't necessarily get filed. It's more of where they would come forward in an official capacity with a release or a press conference and state, we have an update on the Gabby Petito story or on the Gabby Petito investigation. This is what we have determined, but you're not going to file necessarily charges. The question would then be is whether or not Brian Laundrie confided in anybody, whether or not he told anybody what had happened to his fiancée, Gabby Petito, and then the possibility of charges then falls onto whomever he told and whoever did not come forward, with that information or didn't. Or
I don't think he told his parents the truth.
They weren't cooperative with the ongoing.
I think the parents found out.
So, okay. Yeah. No. And that's
through the
a very
media
good question. I mean, where do they take it from
what
there?
actually happened
if they
to
were
Gabby.
determined that he was responsible, obviously he's no longer here. But then it goes even more scrutiny in on who could have helped him, who could have known details of the case, that sort of thing.
That's where the potential for charges lie.
Right.
Because with Brian Laundrie now being deceased, of course, if it comes back, they would just announce that those are the results, and it wouldn't necessarily be case closed. But again, we talk about this. The FBI doesn't announce small developments on a story or on an ongoing investigation. They announce results. Right. Let's get to this question. Oh, this is a big one from over the weekend. Donald Rowland, #AJB, #HeyJosh, and Facebook. Come on, Facebook. I know you want to cooperate. And
here, I want to address one thing real quick.
Sure.
This guy just tweeted me, John Marchetti. I have to say, I think it's really irresponsible reporting on both your parts to troll concerned civilians' theories on live television instead of helping them understand what you two so clearly know.
I'll go second. If you're going to address this comment, I'll go second.
Yeah, this is disappointing because I've talked with this guy privately and answered his questions. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how we're trolling anybody out there. I mean, I've always respected people's theories on the case because, look, there's been a ton of theories on this case. So I don't see where he's getting off saying.
Go lay down.
Here's what I have to say to that. You could make the argument that it's more irresponsible, given the platform that we have here, to not address the conspiracy theories. For us to just let the conspiracy theories run wild. We're bringing up the conspiracy. It's an interactive discussion, right? To Josh's point, it's an interactive discussion. We can bring this in and just tell you that this isn't factual, that this isn't rooted in reality. So there are other news organizations that post a news story on their Facebook or on their Twitter, and then the conspiracy theories run wild underneath. We're using this platform here interactively to tell you what is and isn't true. So I don't necessarily ever buy the argument that bringing that into the conversation here is irresponsible. We have the responsibility to tell you what is reality, and what is, because there's just, Josh, there's endless amounts of misinformation
and
out there
every
online.
day, and it's trying to just kind of weed apart all the theories out there to try to see what is fact and try to stick to that fact. That's what we do here, and it's trying to lock down the facts, because a lot of people have so many questions about, and I don't know what specifically he was relating to there, but yeah, we do our best here just to try to wade through everything that's out there to try to give you what we know concrete, and yes, we'll discuss theories to a certain extent. And because that's what people are talking about. I get inundated with questions about, like the gun, for instance. I posted that tweet, and I knew people were going to be curious about that. So I'm glad we talked about it. But again, I don't think it's related to the case, but it's something that is being investigated. It's actually at the sheriff's office right now, and it's actually in evidence. So I think it's part of a crime? Could very well be. And I hope they find out if it is, and I hope we can do an update on that story and bring it to you right back here on the stream to say, yeah, that gun was used to kill somebody, or that gun was used in a crime, and here are the facts we know to prove that. So I'll get off of the soapbox on this, but that was a little frustrating to see that we're not trolling anybody out there. We're just trying to give you what we know.
Facts, truth, not misinformation. Listen, if you're looking for facts versus misinformation, there's a lot more misinformation out there in the back channels of the web than there are, of course, on the front pages of news organizations. So Donald Rowland, we finally got there. We might not be able to feature too many more. We're going to try to get to as many #HeyJB, #HeyJosh text comments in our comment section, written comments. We have video questions and comments coming up, but Donald Rowland, #HeyJB, #HeyJosh. Cops had cameras on the house, and they let Brian drive away. This is from Brian Enton, who put out on Twitter that there were cameras. He could not report on it at the time. I know from conversations with Brian that he and I had discussed this over the last couple of weeks, that there were cameras up. He couldn't report it. We couldn't report it. It just couldn't be reported because it was, of course, sensitive to an ongoing federal investigation. We're not going to put that information, obviously, on blast. That's, again, some of the responsibility that comes down to us as far as which information that we can report and which information that we can't report and pass along to you. But
sorry, my dogs have the
I was asking
right
folks
now.
about this on Twitter, Josh, over the weekend, about how we have these cameras that were set up, and this adds further fuel to the conversation. How was Brian able to vanish as he did? And what I think blows people's minds about this is that the cameras were set up before he disappeared, before he vanished.
Which was surprising to hear. We didn't know anything about that, so that was a huge development.
Massive development. So if that is the case, so I remember Josh Taylor chiming back to Brian in a previous interview saying, "Well, why didn't you see him?" Well, now we ping pong it right back and be like, "Josh, why didn't the media see Brian Laundrie leave? Well, why wasn't there? I want to know why there was or was not or more behind whether or not they had a officer on a public street parked outside of the home on a residential public street within Northport Police's jurisdiction, and whether or not that officer was able to then follow the Mustang to, again, within the same jurisdiction on public streets to a public park where you can publicly go. Why there was
sorry, guys.
You have the right to put cameras up, but you can't have an officer monitor the whereabouts of somebody connected to an ongoing investigation. He says we don't track residents. Again, Josh Taylor is a spokesperson. He's giving information. He's providing answers to the public based on what he can and cannot share from the Northport Police Department. But I would just give some answers on why there wasn't more of an active just surveillance operation going on when Brian Laundrie returned home. Why there wasn't more eyes on him. If you had cameras up, why aren't you having an officer just keeping an eye on the house? And if there was an officer keeping an eye on the house, then what was it? Human error? What exactly went wrong? I want to know if it was a manpower and resources limitation. I want to know if it was a policy. I talked about this on Twitter, whether or not was there a problem with Northport Police policy or Florida policy when it comes to being able to monitor the whereabouts.
And, I think that's where the FBI would come in, too, because if there was some missteps taken by any of the agencies, that should come to light eventually, you would think, right?
Right.
I think as part of the investigation and to see if they could solve this crime, I think those are some of the questions that need to be answered along the way.
Little bugger. No, Day-Day.
I said it day one when Brian Laundrie was gone, and I'll say it again here more than a month later. I still think it's just mind-blowing to me that in 2021, somebody with as much attention as Brian Laundrie was receiving was able to just poof, just vanish.
Yeah, I'm not happy with that.
Just shocking.
They should have,
I think it's shocking
if they had cameras.
A lot
Come
of folks.
on.
Let's try to animate a couple of more comments here if we can. Hopefully it works. The next one comes in from Angela in our comment section across Facebook. And we're waiting, and I just am trying to make it work, but it's just trying.
I wonder what's up with that thing.
I'll get on the. I think I'm.
Call Mark Zuckerberg.
Do
you have him on speed dial?
No, I don't have him on speed. Oh, there it goes. See, you mentioned Zuckerberg's name, and then the comment works. So we just, is that the trick?
Sorry, Mark.
We just have to say that name, and poof,
there you go.
We've got comments.
The magic word.
Angela, #AJB, the notebook that they found. Do you think that we will ever find out if he wrote something in it about what happened to Gabby? The notebook. I'll go back in time here. Still shocked that they said that they found a notebook, because now it's the source of endless speculation online, and people want to know what's in it. Josh, they want to know what's in that notebook.
Right, and I think personally, there's a good chance that whatever's in there will be legible if the fact that he wrote with permanent marker or pen, which it appeared he did based on some previous posts, and if it was in the bag and the bag protected to a certain extent. So I think what's in there should be fairly legible. And did he write anything in there prior to dying? We don't know. And will we ever see it? I don't know. I don't know the question to that. I don't know if a FOIA request would wiggle that enough to get it out to the public, or especially after maybe the investigation has come to a point where it's not determined or it's closed. Then maybe. But I think initially now, unless there is something very specific to point to him as someone responsible, I don't think we're going to see what's in that notebook.
Let's get to the next. The notebook is big, but if it just contains personal information and it doesn't contain anything connected to an ongoing federal investigation, I don't know if we'll ever really learn the contents of that notebook. But I guess we'll find out. Maria is next up as far as our video question. We're going to try to feature more video questions because of some of the issues that it's just lagging behind as far as bringing in the Facebook and YouTube questions and comments here. So let's get to this next one. It's a quick one. It comes in from Maria.
Hey, JB, my question is, can the Petito family take the Laundrie family to court and try to get answers from them?
Can the Petito and Schmitz take the Laundrie family to court to get answers from them?
Yeah,
now,
anybody could sue anybody, essentially. And what grounds would it be? That would be the first question. And damages, what would... Obviously, the Petitos have lost a lot, everything. So, yes, they can do that. It's just a matter of how successful they would be based on, how that family is viewed in this case and what their responsibility is. Because right now, again, there's no evidence pointing to that they had anything to do with it. So
you can sue for anything, right? You can. That's one thing that I've learned is that you think you can't sue for something, and then you find a way. An attorney will find a way to get that lawsuit through and filed in a court of law. So I don't know if necessarily they have any influence on the investigation or getting a grand jury to. I know that the grand jury has been mentioned as an avenue to get the Laundrie family in front of talk.
But if the Petitos sue the Laundrie, to be under oath, it would be a civil case, I believe.
But as far as just a civil suit and filing something outside the periphery of the ongoing federal investigation, I have learned through my years of reporting. You can sue for almost anything. Really almost anything. There was a lawsuit filed for the sign in the front lawn and monetary $40, right?
The registration and the fees involved in just filing the lawsuit were more than the damages. It was like $85 to get that in the court system, but the damages were $40.
I wonder, $40 was
that was more of a statement than obviously the damages.
Let's get to the next video question. It comes in from Lonnie here on WFLA Now.
Hi, JB. This is Lonnie from Pennsylvania. About Chris and Roberta Laundrie, I'd like to say that since the day that their son came home and they asked him, where is Gabby? Everything they did from that moment on, every decision they made, every action they took and did not take has led to this outcome. Maybe not 100%, but next to Brian, they were the ones who could have changed the ending to this story.
Yeah.
And that is something they have to live with. Maybe that's enough justice.
No.
Maybe that's enough karma. And
no.
maybe that's all we get. Thanks.
Lonnie just making the, not even a question, just making the observation that Chris and Roberta Laundrie, regardless of whether or not they committed a crime, they directly had an influence on the conclusion that we are at today.
Yep.
with
I agree
Brian
with that,
Laundrie
100%.
being deceased again, and Gabby Petito and Nicole Schmidt not having answers now. Brian, because Brian returns home. And let me just clarify what Lonnie is saying there. Brian Laundrie returns home and is home for many days. They go camping together. And what Lonnie is saying, was it ever addressed? Was it ever addressed within the family? Where's Gabby? What happened to Gabby? And why didn't then Brian Laundrie's parents?
Sorry, guys, I'm just going to pause this. When Chris and Roberta had previously booked at Camp DeSoto there, the first weekend of September when Brian came home, they had to cancel that weekend because I'm going to assume that they knew that he was coming home. So they waited for him to come home and then go camping the following weekend. But within that first week, you think, me as a parent of adults, I would be asking, what happened? Where's your girlfriend? Where's Gabby? And yes, I don't think he told them the truth. So there's that. Okay.
Chris and Roberta, why didn't they take the phone calls from Joe Petito and Nicole Schmidt, Gabby's mother and father, and Tara Schmidt, Tara Petito and Jim Schmidt? The family reaching out and not giving answers still produces questions and observations like what Lonnie just sent us.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what Stephen Bertolino told his client. You know, you don't have to answer any questions. Does that mean he told them you don't have to respond to the family and you don't have to take part in a search? You know, was there enough eyeballs to think they were suspects? So he was just being overly cautious to tell them to just be as quiet as possible. We don't know the specifics behind that, but that could be one of the reasons why they didn't help in this case or reach out. So. Yeah, I mean, you can draw parallels and you can try to figure out what actually played out. But again, I think that will all come back to the timeline and to see in this investigation, is there anything there with the family related to this case that will not do well for them? We don't know as of now, because right now it doesn't appear there's anything.
And I don't want to be misconstrued. What I'm not, and what I said could be misconstrued earlier. And I want to be very, very clear here.
No.
That I'm not saying that Chris and Roberta Laundrie are responsible for Brian Laundrie's death. Brian Laundrie, we just don't know. We don't know enough about what. They didn't think too much of it, that he was leaving to go for a hike.
And actually, in one of his interviews too, Mr. Bertolino and a reporter, I think it was New York, one of the local stations up there, he said that he was in mourning when he left, and they couldn't stop him. So everybody has been commenting on that on Twitter, saying, why was he in mourning? Like, why was he so devastated? And what was he devastated about? So I asked Stephen Bertolino about that and never got a response.
What Lonnie is saying, and then what I was trying to paraphrase for our audience here, is just that there were decisions made that got us to the conclusion that we have here today. That all the decisions that were made by the family, including the decision to not take action as far as responding to the phone calls from Joe Petito and Nicole Schmidt, all of that weaves us to the conclusion, or at least the destination of where we are with this story right now today.
Right.
And so that's just kind of a little bit of clarification for what I was trying to provide for our audience here. Let's get to this one coming in, and it comes in from, and hopefully it works, and it's from YouTube.
It flashed for a second.
It did?
Yep. I saw it pop up and disappear.
It's from Amy Davis, and it's on YouTube, and there it is. Hashtag KJB. Has anyone ever asked Josh Taylor, that's the Northport Police Public Information Officer and spokesperson, where he thought Brian was when he said they knew where Brian was? Like,
it's a good question.
It's a great question. If Chief Todd Garrison of Northport Police says we know where Brian is, and he's reiterated multiple times in that press conference, then where did they think that they thought Brian was? It's only natural to assume home, at the home there in Northport, but I don't remember Josh Taylor very specifically answering this particular question here from Amy. Do you?
No, that's a good question.
This is why.
Maybe they knew that he was in the reserve, or maybe they knew he was somewhere else. They were just never asked specifically.
This is exactly why this interactive platform is so helpful and allows us to take questions like this where we said, oh, okay, so we have followed up so many times over and over again about Josh Taylor, his responses to Chief Todd Garrison saying, we know where he is. But this exact phrasing of this question hasn't been asked to my knowledge. It could have been in a Josh Taylor interview, and perhaps he didn't want to specify. But as far as on the record or video interviews that we have seen, I don't remember this one in particular being asked. So Amy, thank you for putting on your reporter hat and answering that question for us, or excuse me, asking that question for us. Let's get to this next one. It's another video question. We're only going to be on stream for another few minutes here, folks. We do not have too long here today.
I do have a quick question I want to get to because I've seen a lot of people asking about it.
Go for it.
Heather Noel, I see your question here to me. She's just asking, there's a lot of 2 pages of allegedly of a notebook that were released. And I can't confirm any of that. I don't think any of us can. It was
left
like
in
a
his
suicide
room,
note. So people are floating those around. And we have no indication from law enforcement that anything from the notebook, any type of note, any type of confession, any type of any of that has been released officially.
And
so
that's
you got to be really careful. I mean, somebody could be sitting on YouTube. I could sit here and I could write something right now and I could videotape it out in the woods. I could put it on YouTube and start a storyline and get so many clicks on it that you just got to be really careful. Nothing official that I'm aware of has been put out regarding anything about 2 pages of anything to a notebook, a confession, or a suicide note.
And even more evidence that doing what we do here interactively on WFLA now, as far as weeding out the misinformation that's out there, that's why it's so valuable to the commenter earlier that tweeted at you, Josh, that we're asking like why we do this.
Yeah.
And this is exactly why. And I'm going to jump off of Josh's point and say something that he knows, and let me just make this clear. There are people out there that are willing to fabricate evidence to try to gain clicks and try to profit off of your thirst for information. So let's not forget that reputable sources, and it's sad. It is
in this day and age, though, that's what social's driving a lot of things. People want to stand out. They want to know that they're a part of something, which you guys have all been a part of. This has been amazing to have this community come together and share ideas, and like share the theories and share, the direct messages I get about things. There are things I haven't even seen yet. You guys are sending it to me before I even hear it. So then I'll go out and I can try to confirm it, and then boom, if it's confirmed, I'll put it on my timeline. But that's been hugely helpful. So I appreciate that all you've been doing. You just have to really be careful about what's out there and take it with a grain of salt, and ask people. And law enforcement essentially is who's going to have to confirm a lot of this. But I'm glad you brought up the pages because I'm seeing it everywhere on social.
I had some commenters come in. It's not factual just because it's on the internet.
Right.
And that's true. Don't believe everything you read on the internet.
Yep.
Look for credible, reputable sources of information. Next video question comes in from Danelle.
Hey JB and the rest of the WFLA team. My name's Danelle and I've been watching from Southern California. I just want to say you guys have done a great job covering this case with grace and equal perspective to all of the parties involved. My question is, could it really be just as simple that Brian did decide to go into the park or the reserve on the 13th or 14th of September to take his own life, and his parents really didn't know where he was, and they just happened to go look in the spot where they thought he might be, and they stumbled upon what they found? Thanks.
Danelle's, we're both nodding here.
Yeah,
JB and JB 2.0 are both nodding here.
Absolutely, that could be the scenario.
As simple as that Brian, okay, going down the rabbit hole for a second, Brian Laundrie, something terrible happens to Gabby Petito, and he is, let's just say, down the rabbit hole now, he's responsible for her death, right? He comes home and perhaps that's not something that he's just ready to tell mom and dad.
And that would be a lot to carry.
It's a lot to carry. And that's not something that you explain to your mother and father. You just say that you maybe had a breakup. I'm just, again, going down the rabbit hole here. And you go down.
It's possible, though.
You go down the road of several days now of carrying that knowledge in your mind. You go camping, and then before you know it, the entire world starts honing in on the story. To Danelle's point, and then the weight of that maybe yes, maybe you do go to the Carlton Reserve with the intention of doing something terrible, and that it could be just that, and that Chris and Roberta Laundrie don't know that's all within the realm of possible without question.
Yeah, I was trying to think how much media coverage was on this case, thinking back while he was there, while he was at the camping trip and the days leading up to when he went to the reserve. It was in the news cycle, obviously, because they'd been talking about Gabby, correct?
I'm trying to remember our first stream.
And so would he have been aware that there was a lot of attention being drawn on the story, or was that after he had gone to the reserve? Because my brain's shot. I mean, I can't think back about, because I got on this story about a week later, the Monday following, when the Mustang was towed. I was down at Northport at the house that whole day when
you were field anchoring that day.
Yeah, so I remember that was like my first entry into this story, and I remember I'm like thinking this is turning out to be a big story, and that's why we went down there, and obviously wanted to be a part of what was going on. So that is kind of the start for me on the case, but I know a lot of you were involved in this well before that. So just to put it out there, if he was aware that there was this scrutiny around the case, yeah, I mean that would have definitely played into the picture in my opinion.
We had started reporting on the story, and then I think it was a day or so or 2 days after that we began WFLA Now Interactive streaming on the story itself. So hold on, our archives are loading here. I'm going to give you an exact date as to when our very first stream was on WFLA Now, and I don't even think that one was on. I think it was just on Facebook.
Yeah,
or it was just on WFLA's app.
I've always wondered though. I haven't looked back far enough to see when we started really kind of going after this.
Yeah, we've had dozens and dozens and dozens of streams, but it does go back to, I believe, to that second week in September, and still loading. It's wow. We've done many live streams on the Gabby Petito story. Okay, we're going back now 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Here's the press conference that Nicole Schmidt had, begging for information when she was holding up the images, that coming back, and now and looking here. Okay, so now we have, this is interesting. Okay, so going back here, and I think that our very first live stream was, here it is.
This woman, Katie, says, we really didn't know about Gabby until 9/11 when her mom reported her missing, so it could have been a few things here and there, but it wasn't until around that time he allegedly went to the woods that it really picked up.
Yeah, I think that our
Katie baby, thank you.
It was either the 12th or the 13th was our first live stream. We had coverage of it before that, but yep.
Okay.
All right, so that's interesting. Okay, we
that's
got
the time you went to the reserve, so
we only have time for 2 more video comments, I think, or maybe even 1. But we'll get to the next one here, and it comes in from this one comes in from Megan. This is an interesting comment here from Megan.
Hey JB, my name's Megan. I want to thank you for your diligent coverage of the case and for going above and beyond to interact with viewers like you do. Here's my question. Obviously, seasonal flooding is an issue at the Carlton Reserve in the Myakkahatchee Park. As a native to the area, can you offer any insight as to whether these areas have a history of closing to the public due to flooding? We've learned that water levels only recently receded in the area that remains were found. So I'm wondering if the reopening of the park to the public had as much to do with recession of water levels as it did active search efforts ending. Any insight you can provide would be appreciated. Thank you.
Good question from Megan. And let's just make it very clear is that that flooding at the Carlton Reserve is very common. It's extraordinarily common. It happens when there's we get a lot of rain here in Florida. But what she's asking here, Josh, and I don't know if I have a concrete answer here as to whether or not they actively and routinely close the Carlton Reserve for flooding in particular.
I think
it might just be so common of an occurrence that that they're not actively closing it. Is that?
Yeah, and I don't know for sure. There's certain paths there that are pretty wide open. So I mean, if those are flooded, there may be an indication. Maybe a park worker goes out there and says, "Look, this is too crazy." Maybe blocks it off. But I can't tell how many times that would have been flooded or not and closed off to the public.
Yeah,
it's hard to say.
But
because we don't actually live down there. We're about an hour and a half from there, so it's not like a park that I've never even been there. So I wouldn't be able to say for certain.
It's a tale of two Carlton reserves. September, so heavily flooded. I mean, heavily flooded. And then into October, now, extraordinarily dry on the ground because we just haven't had the rainfall totals of the last 2 to 3 weeks here in the Tampa Bay area. So, Josh, I know we got to get going here. Your final thoughts and what's coming up your way on social media or what you're going to be talking about?
Well, just watching what happens with this case, because now obviously it's going to be a little quieter. We know that the work is in the lab for the most part. There's going to be
I have another video that I want to share too.
Brian Laundrie, and
so when this
probably
ends,
some more
I'll play
specialists
that.
brought in, maybe an entomologist, maybe a botanist. We don't know, but those are the types of professionals now who come in to try to piece this together. Because when a medical examiner can't make a determination of death, it has to go up to another level, and that's where these anthropologists who study bones obviously really focus in on the fine details to try to piece together the puzzle of what happened. So I can't imagine that's a very quick process. So we probably won't hear details for a while. I don't know how long it is, which is frustrating because I know people want answers in the case. They want to know what happened. But we'll keep an ear to the ground and post updates when we get something concrete from officials. And we'll just continue to follow the story. I'm over on Twitter at WFLAJosh, so come on by and I'll post things there. I post pretty much all my updates on this case there, so that's what you will find. As for today, 4 o'clock news will be on there with any updates we have of the day's news. There's a lot else going on outside of this case, so just got to keep
sorry, guys.
Making the biscuits, I guess, getting the news together and getting ready. Josh will be at 4 o'clock.
Josh Benson, everybody. You'll see him on the anchor desk on our, of course, NBC station here in Tampa Bay, WFLA News Channel 8. Josh, as always, thanks a lot.
Thanks, brother.
All right. Back here with you live on WFLA now, just to kind of let you know where things go forward from here, folks. Of course, the latest for you on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. We're going to be paying attention across all of our social media platforms. Still, of course, pursuing the latest here on this story, but developments now. Where does this go from here? When are we going to get information on the anthropology report that comes back? Will that...
I'm just going to pause that for a second. I want it to show, it's ending anyhow. I want it to show a video that I watched this morning, and it was from Nancy Grace. Let me see if I can just, oh no, it's going to be a... Why is it not? Sorry, guys. Just give me a few minutes. So, basically, from what I can get from this, the Laundries are somewhere else in Florida grieving the loss of their son. And autopsy's inconclusive. There's not enough DNA or something. So this clip I'm going to show you, it's about 10 minutes long, and it's from Nancy Grace. And I'll just play it, and we'll go from there.
At this hour, skeletonized remains, a skull to be specific, found in the swamps of the Mayakahatchee Preserve, now en route to a forensic anthropologist to determine COD, cause of death. The remains of so-called boyfriend Brian Laundrie, found during a search of the densely wooded swampland by Laundrie's own parents. The Laundrie mom and dad coincidentally doing in less than 1 hour of searching what couldn't be done by scent dogs, cadaver dogs, drones, divers, and hundreds of man-hours, as an eyewitness across the country reveals what he saw at the Gabby Petito murder scene. Tonight, we are taking your questions.
Investigators found what appeared to be human remains, along with personal items, such as a backpack and notebook belonging to Brian Laundrie.
The nationwide hunt for Brian Laundrie has ended. The FBI says a comparison of dental records confirmed that human remains found in a Florida nature preserve belong to the 23-year-old.
We're talking about water levels up above almost the chest area. Rattlesnakes, moccasins, alligators. Brian Laundrie, a person of interest in the murder of Gabby Petito.
So they found remains
and we knew Gabby.
Cause death by strangulation and manner is homicide.
Is there a reason the FBI thinks you're not telling the truth? Do you have anything to say about Gabby?
Do you have anything to say to Gabby's family as they're dealing with learning about the autopsy?
Has he ever tried hurting Gabby in the past?
While we can't change the outcome, we can bring justice. All of America's watching.
Justice. Justice for Gabby. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. Thank you for being with us tonight. More questions than answers. No DNA. No cause of death. What do we know? With us tonight, an all-star panel to make sense of what we know. But first, straight to the scene in Florida, standing by Charles Watson, Fox News correspondent, live outside the Laundrie home. Charles Watson, thank you for being with us. I don't get it. I don't get that the remains of so-called boyfriend Brian Laundrie have been found, according to what we've been told, but it's not a full skeleton. In fact, we've only heard about a skull. Then we hear about a partial skull, but from that partial skull, you can get a dental match. It's just all very vague in my mind, but let me start with what you know. Where are you? What do you see? What can you hear? What's happening?
Well, Nancy, certainly more questions tonight than answers. Of course, we heard earlier in the week that the FBI had discovered Brian Laundrie's remains at the Maxahachie Environmental Creek Park, not too far from the Laundrie's Northport home here behind me. Now, an autopsy was completed on that body. The results came back inconclusive, so the remains are being sent to a forensic anthropologist who is going to sort of sift through the remains there and try to figure out any clues that they can reveal to try to determine a cause of death. Here at the Laundrie's home in Northport, it's been fairly quiet today. This morning, we got our first look at the Laundrie parents leaving the home together. They were in a hurry and jumped into a red pickup truck and left the scene. They really sped off, and our cameras and our cars and reporters out here tried to tell them, but they got away so quickly that we weren't able to keep up with them, and they were lost. That was hours ago, around 9:30 this morning. 10 o'clock this evening, they still haven't returned. So a lot of questions as to where they are and what they're doing, and a lot of questions as to how they were able to.
Didn't the mom have a big green bag with her? I mean, for all I know, they could have left the house and not come back.
Yeah, she did walk out with a backpack, what appeared to be a backpack this morning. Yesterday, Saturday, we saw Brian Laundrie's father, Chris Laundrie, loading some boxes into the car. So not very clear if that was something they had pre-planned for their departure today, but that's the activity we've seen out at the Laundrie's home.
Charles Watson joining me there at the scene, Fox News correspondent. Charles, let me understand something. I am now hearing that there will be no funeral for their son, and that his remains are to be cremated. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct, Nancy. We've been in contact with the Laundrie's lawyer, Stephen Bertolino, who confirmed to us that Brian's remains, once the forensic anthropologist is done looking over the remains and sort of trying to get to a determination of how he died, his body will be cremated. And at this time, the family has no plans of holding a funeral service for Brian.
Guys, with me an all-star panel, joining me out of the Florida jurisdiction, high-profile lawyer Dale Carson and former FBI agent, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University, and author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon, Joseph Scott Morgan, clinical forensic psychologist specializing in criminal cases, Dr. Alan Blotke, Chris Adams. He is, for lack of a better description, a swamp man, a swamp survival expert. On Facebook, Living Wild, Cheryl McCollum, founder, director of the Cold Case Research Institute at coldcasecrimes.org, and of course, Charles Watson. I'm not quite sure, Cheryl McCollum, that the public is buying it, because I've been flooded with emails, calls, texts, that the parents go out of the home. They announce the night before, we're going to go search tomorrow. They go out in less than 1 hour they, quote, their words, not mine, Cheryl, zigzag through the forest. The mom stays on the trail. The father, yeah, Rusty, that's what I want to see right there. What we're showing right now, Cheryl, I don't know if you can see it or not, are Chris and Roberta Laundrie, and they're being shown what we believe are items belonging to their son who's been missing, we think, since the 13th. I don't see any crying. I don't see anybody upset. A lot of people are stumped as to why they go out in 1 hour and they basically hit on his body. When drones, cadaver dogs, scent dogs, nobody could do it.
I think they're also stumped because he doesn't find anything until he's out of the sight of law enforcement. So there's nobody there next to him when he finds these items. Nobody's wearing gloves. And look right here. Here comes a gentleman walking his dog. This scene is not secure. There's no crime scene tape. They haven't cordoned off anything. They haven't stopped anybody, obviously, from coming into the area. The whole thing is odd, Nancy. Every single time these parents are involved with something, it just leaves us baffled.
Well, Dale Carson, I hear what Cheryl McCollum is saying, but in answer to all of the emails and the texts and the floods of the phone calls is this. Yes, I see why people believe that the parents planted the notebook or the dry bag or the backpack. But if you follow that through to its logical conclusion, you would have to accept the end of the game that they planted the body too, and I find that too fantastical, Dale Carson.
Well, I find that too fantastical as well. I don't believe that's exactly what happened, although I don't doubt that the dry bag was planted there by them or perhaps taken there by them that very day. It's very easy to conceal something of that nature on your person, and of course they were not being escorted by the police. They were simply with police when they were doing that field check. And it is, as Cheryl points out, very odd that they would find all of these critical information.
Well, Dale Carson, you know what? You're a high-profile lawyer out of Florida, and odd does not a case make. And I just don't see, you're parsing why they would plant the backpack and then it's right beside the bodies. That scenario does not fit together for me. It doesn't hang together. But what are we left with? We're left with a partial skull. There are about 206 bones in the human body. I'm going to double check that with Joe Scott Morgan. But we've got part of a skull. Why? Why is that all that left of the body of Brian Laundrie? Joining me, Chris Adams, swamp survival expert. Chris, I don't see it. I mean, let me just start with alligators, since we're getting a flood of questions about that. If Laundrie had been dead already, if he had, let's just hypothesize, committed suicide, would an alligator eat something that was already dead? I mean, I put money on it. The answer is yes. But you tell me.
Let's start smaller. Everything from bacteria down in the mud to snails, insects, crawfish, even other scavengers like turtles, and especially an alligator, would find an opportunity at an easy meal. Too much of a forgiving thing. They'd go right after it. It wouldn't be long before most animals would get rid of something like that.
Okay, well, excuse me. That's all I had from the Nancy Grace. Sorry. And that was taken out last night. I want to look. Let me just see if I can find my the letter that everybody's talking about. Now, it has been debunked for right now, apparently. I just kind of wanted to show it. Oh, that's... So, the first person I see... Oh, now where'd it go? to bring that letter to light was another creator. Oh, I can't even spell today. So cold here, my fingers aren't working. Okay. So this is the apparent letter. I will show it to you. Just give me a quick second. If it will open up on me here. Oh, okay. Oh. All right. So I'll share my screen and I'll show you. I really, maybe I can read a little bit of it. It's really hard for me to read. Okay. I'll try reading it first and then I'll show you it. Yeah, I know it's fake. But basically, I don't know. The letter states, it just says, I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything that has happened. Gabby and I were truly in love, and I would give anything for her to still be here. I know that no one will understand that things simply got out of control. The straw, something of our relationship was more than I could bear. Like I said, it's very hard for me to read. It's like chicken scratch. I should have known to stay home after what happened in Moab. Everything was already a disaster at that point. Something made me to return. See, this is why I thought it was real, because it had mentioned what had happened in Moab. But like I said, it is debunked. It's not real. This is the one everybody's talking about right now. It just says at the end, please forgive me for all of that, something I have put you through to tell happened. I was too ashamed to. Something I hope someday people can understand what really happened. Until we meet again someday, forever, ... But yeah. But this is one that was circulating around on the internet and still is. But I do know. I'll show you it just so you know what I read from. But this is basically all I've got right now. So, Autopsy come back as inconclusive, and the Laundries have gone somewhere private to grieve. Don't read the bakery. Sorry, meow. I just did. But so until something comes back from the anthropologist or whatever else they have to do to the bones that they have found to say that the Bryans, and that's the other thing I really don't understand is if they said first it was partial remains, and then it was partial remains of a skull. So does that mean they just have half the skull, or they just have the jaw part of the skull? Because they did say they did take dental records to match that said that it was Brian. But anyhow, so that's all I have for you guys today. Anyhow, So I hope you have a good day and stay warm. It's cold here in Ontario. So until next time, take care and stay safe. Bye-bye.